Hey, I'm Lana from Lana Glowshot Art, and in this video, we'll be unboxing the July 2025 Premium Sketchbox. In this box, we'll be exploring watercolor painting and color mixing. Ready? Let's go. The surface in this month's box is the Hahnemuhle Zig Zag sketchbook, a fun and versatile accordion-style book made with heavyweight 140-pound watercolor paper. This unique format lets you create a continuous scene across multiple pages and is a fun and playful service to take with you on the go. Next, we have the SketchBox Signature Watercolor Palette. These 12 colors come in a durable, portable tin with built-in mixing areas to make painting on location easy and convenient. We also have the SketchBox Signature Size 4 Long Round Brush. This brush features a fine point and is ideal for precise details and expressive strokes. Using this brush, I went ahead and swatched all 12 colors off camera and labeled them so I could easily refer to my swatches throughout the painting process. For my first project in this book, I'm going to begin with the Caran d'Ache Neocolor 2 in dark gray. This is a water-soluble wax pastel, which can be used dry for bold crayon-like marks, or you can activate it with water to create soft washes and painterly effects. The prompt this month is vacation. And as I work in the Zig Zag sketchbook, I'm imagining myself on a mountain camping trip, sketching things I might encounter along the way. Here, I'm starting with my travel bag, boots, and hat. I begin with basic shapes and light pressure, and if I make a mistake with proportions, it's no big deal. I simply draw over the top of it. And as I gain confidence with my shapes, I start adding more value, focusing mainly on the light and dark areas. I'm keeping it really simple and treating it almost like a two-value study. And once the dry part of this drawing is complete, I activate it with water to soften the transitions and to fill in the white tooth of the paper. Since you don't always have unlimited time to sketch when you're on location, simplifying your focus to values and proportions is a great way to capture the essentials. You can always add color later when you have more time, which I'll show you soon. Once the activated Neocolor 2 is completely dry, I go back in with Payne's Gray, the darkest color in my watercolor palette, and I use it to deepen the shadows. This helps me add more structure and detail to the sketch. This step can be done while you're still on location if your subject is in front of you and hasn't changed, or you can do this later from a photograph or from your imagination. When I sketch on location, I try to keep a really playful mindset, embracing mistakes and happy accidents as part of the experience. And I encourage you to do this as well. Not every single sketch in your Zig Zag sketchbook needs to be perfect. It's all about the journey and what you learn along the way. The accordion style of this book allows me to extend the map that is under the boot onto the next page. And then, with a combination of Caribbean blue and Berlin blue, I mix up a wash for the map. I want this to be really wet, so I add a lot of water to it. And then, once I have the whole map covered in this nice light blue, I drop in a bit of green for a wet-on-wet effect. Now, I don't need the photograph or my live reference in front of me to add color because I already have the value established. So I can glaze over the top of my value underpainting with thin light washes of color. If you brush over the color a ton, you can reactivate the watercolor washes underneath. So just lay a quick layer of color over the top and move on. Now I'm going to take you through a slightly faster sketch, focusing on basic shapes and ignoring that value underpainting. Here I'm looking at a duck, and this could be something that you do as the duck is moving around. So instead of getting everything perfect, look at the body as a basic shape. Look at the head, commit to a position, then you can lean into your color impressions and just be playful. It doesn't have to be perfect. For the neck, I'm using a combination of chestnut brown and beet red, and then to darken it up a little bit, I'm adding a bit of Payne's Gray. That helps neutralize the reds and oranges in this brown and helps deepen the color a bit more. For the duck's bill, I used a combination of canary yellow and yellow ochre. This allowed me to create a vibrant, bright yellow that wasn't quite as acidic as the canary yellow on its own. Then I added pumpkin to a bit of beet red for the feet. When I move to the head, I'm using straight emerald green as a wash over the entire area. And then while the paint is still wet, I mix up a little bit of emerald green, Berlin blue, and Payne's gray for a darker color. That helps me add a little bit of dimension, and when I paint into wet paint, I can get softer, smoother transitions. For the gray in the rest of the body, I start with Berlin blue and add some chestnut brown. This gives me a cool neutral green, but it's too green, so I add a little bit of red to neutralize that. This results in a gray, and I swatch it over to the side to make sure it's the right color before adding it into the feathers. To make it lighter, I just add more water, and then I adjust as I move around the duck's belly. If I work wet into wet, I can get a little bit more playful interaction between the colors. As my paints dry, I have the opportunity to come back in and add some more detail to my duck. This is also where I bring in deeper, darker values and features like the eyes and details on the beak. For my next study, I'm going to sketch a tent in the forest. And while the sketch is always important, we're going to skip through this pretty quickly because I really want to show you how to mix a variety of different greens so we can really make this green tent stand out amongst the green trees and the green grasses. I started by swatching emerald. But for the tent, this wasn't cool enough, so I added a bit of Berlin blue, swatched it, I was happy with it, and I used this as a base for the tent. For the right side of the tent that is more in shadow, I need a darker color. So I'm using a similar recipe with Berlin blue and emerald, but I am adding less water to it. This darker color is a great color to use for the details on the tent, like the folds and the shadows, and for that area inside the tent. But don't get caught up in teeny tiny little details. That usually isn't a great use of your time when you're sketching quickly on location. Now it's time to mix up some of those greens that we see in the background. Adding canary yellow to some of the washes that you've already mixed up is a great place to get started. Here I made a slightly darker green by adding a bit of Berlin blue, and I'm adding a little bit more canary yellow to the greens in the foreground. Work quickly and add lots of water to get that quick, loose painterly effect. For the tree trunks in the background, I'm using a combination of chestnut brown and Payne's gray, and this gives me a really deep, rich brown that leans towards green, so it feels really cohesive with the rest of my painting. I allow my paint strokes to be really loose and organic. If I pull out a ruler or something here, it's going to feel way too rigid. And I go ahead and play with different colors for my trunks of the trees so that I can get a really nice sense of light and variety in the background. Once the trunks are completely dry, I come in with a really bright, vibrant green, and this starts out with a combination of canary yellow and emerald. Then for those deeper washes, I add more emerald and Berlin blue. When it comes to painting trees, I have found myself being most successful if I try really hard not to overthink it and I just allow my paintbrush to dance across my paper. So for these pine trees, I think about the basic shape being an elongated triangle. But then when I paint the triangle, I'm using a really organic approach with my paintbrush, and I am allowing there to be space from the background peeking through. Sometimes I'm just randomly dabbing my paintbrush on the paper to create that texture. Wet on wet effects work great for trees and allow you to create variety in value and color without having to draw specific shadows. If you just drop some wet, darker paint in there, it will take care of itself and create some really interesting, playful shapes. When I allow watercolor to just move around and explore and I stop trying to control it so much, I'm usually happier with the results that I get. Now let's put everything that we've learned together and create a landscape. Here I'm using the Neocolor 2 crayon to sketch in the major shapes that I see. I'm not drawing individual trees or individual rocks. Instead, I'm grouping those objects into one shape and I'm drawing that. This initial sketch is meant to be light and loose and just enough to guide your painting. Watercolor allows for a very layered approach, and for my base layer, I'm going to start with a wet on wet. Here I'm wetting the top half of my painting. Then I'm dropping in some Berlin blue towards the top, and I'm allowing it to blend as it moves towards the bottom of my wet area, where I'm using a combination of Berlin blue and canary yellow. Then to create those bright fluffy clouds, I'm using some paper towel, pressing it into the wet paint and lifting off until I get my desired shape. I want those soft atmospheric blends in the rocks in the foreground as well. So I'm doing another wet on wet approach, but I'm doing it separate from the sky and the trees so that they don't blend into each other. I'm using warmer tones for the rocks than what is seen in the photo reference. And this is because I want them to come forward in space and to add contrast to the cooler background. For this warmer color, I'm using a combination of beet red, chestnut brown, and some imperial purple, with more concentrated imperial purple towards the bottom. For the base layer of the river, I used a combination of Caribbean blue, Berlin blue, and yellow ochre. And then I allowed this base layer to dry completely. With this base layer established, I am now going to come in and start refining the shapes in my landscape. And I typically start with those objects that are furthest away in space. So for this landscape, I'm going to begin with the mountains. I'm mixing up a cool gray violet that is just slightly darker than the sky. For me, this was a combination of Berlin blue, imperial purple, and chestnut brown. As I mapped in the mountains, I started with one flat basic shape, and then I added more water as I moved towards the base of the mountain so that they would begin to dissolve into the tree line. In a landscape painting, you can create depth by using the highest level of contrast in the foreground. So here I'm using a really dark, warm color over the top of my warm reds and violets to create contrast in the rocks. This is a great opportunity to play around with all the different kinds of marks that your brush can make, using the point of the brush for detailed precision work and using the side for more expressive painterly marks. You don't have to lock yourself into just one color here either. Play around with a variety of dark, rich colors until you get the rocks the way that you want them. For the pine trees in the background, I'm going to use a darker, richer green to go right over the top of that bright yellow green. And I actually use a couple different greens so that I have variety within this large shape. I am dancing around and allowing a lot of the yellow green to peek through so that I have some more depth and dimension in the background. This is a great opportunity to lean into some wet on wet techniques too, so that you can soften some of those edges, allowing them to naturally fade into the background. As I move forward in space, my trees are going to get darker, so it's important that the trees in the background don't get too dark too early. I'm now adding some yellows to the shoreline, and then over the top of the dry paint, I'm mixing up a really dark green and painting a pine tree. This one is a little bit different than the ones that I demoed before. I started with one straight line, and keep in mind that straight is relative. You don't necessarily want it to be stick straight. And then you dance across the tree, starting small at the top and then moving wider as you get towards the base. Keep it really loose and organic, and don't try to make it too symmetrical. That won't feel very natural. Add the finishing touches, and now this piece is complete. I hope you learned a ton about watercolor painting on location, and we can't wait to see what you create. So be sure to use the hashtag SketchBoxJuly when you post your work online. For more unboxing videos and tutorials, you can check out our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.